Welcome to BOJ Trending News for top stories in local, regional and international news, along with sports and local weather forecast. I'm Carla. Coming up in our local trending news, decomposed body of unidentified male found stuffed in barrel in St. James. Couple arrested and charged in connection with firearm seizure in Old Harbour. Female high school principal hospitalized after being robbed and wounded. Former cop accused of killing teenager granted bail, and Ciara should be made a national hero, Mr. Mackenzie says. Now the news in detail. During nearly 5 hours of glowing tributes on Wednesday, in which the late former Prime Minister of Jamaica, Edward Ciara, was described as a nation builder, elder statesman, and political maestro, there was a call for him to be named a national hero. That call came from Mr. Ciara's protege, Mr. Desmond Mackenzie, the man who would replace Ciara as Member of Parliament for West Kingston, which the late politician had transformed from a dung heap into a modern communities of Tivoli Gardens and Denham Town, and which was his political fortress for more than 4 decades. Mr. Mackenzie's call came during a joint sitting of Parliament to honour Mr. Ciara, who passed away on his 89th birthday on May 28. In his 16-minute-long tribute, Mr. Mackenzie, who remained a close friend of Mr. Ciara up to his passing, said it was all good to name some buildings and roads in his honour, but insisted that Mr. Ciara deserves more. Mr. Mackenzie said now is a time for the nation to come together and not to merely pay lip service, but to step up to the plate and take the decisions to recognise the work of this man, this great, outstanding Jamaican. Meanwhile, 2 former Prime Ministers, P.J. Patterson and Bruce Golding, were among those who paid tribute to Mr. Ciara on Wednesday. In his tribute, Mr. Patterson cited Mr. Ciara's first major speech as a member of the Legislative Council, to which he was appointed as a 29-year-old by Sir Alexander Bustamante in 1959. According to Mr. Patterson, Mr. Ciara's first major presentation sent shockwaves within the corridors of entrenched power and signaled the arrival of one who was destined to bring intellectual vigor, vim, and kinetic vitality to the political arena. The principal of St. Hilda's High School for Girls in Brownstown, St. Anne, Heather Reed Johnson, remains hospitalized after being robbed and stabbed by an unknown assailant on the school compound on Thursday. According to reports at about 7 p.m., the principal was on her way to her cottage on the school compound when she was pounced upon by an armed man. During a struggle, the robber used a sharp object to injure her on her hands. The attacker then reportedly fled the scene with some items belonging to the principal. Mrs. Reed Johnson was assisted to hospital, where she was treated for the injuries. The police are investigating the matter and searching for her attacker. The decomposing body of an unidentified male was discovered stuffed in a barrel at a section of the upscale Westgate Hills community in Montego Bay, St. James yesterday. Reports by the Mount Salem police are that about 1:15 p.m., residents living at a section of Westgate Hills, known as Mountain Dew Avenue, stumbled upon the body and summoned the police. Upon their arrival, the body was discovered in a vast state of decomposition, stuffed in a plastic barrel. The body was removed to the morgue for a post-mortem examination. The Old Harbour police have arrested and charged a couple in connection with the seizure of an illegal firearm and several rounds of ammunition at their home in Avery House and Scheme, Old Harbour, yesterday morning. They have been identified as 29 years old Chevelle Ellison and his 24-year-old wife Kimberly Ellison. Reports about the police are that about 3:30 a.m. the police carried out an operation at the couple's home. During a search of the house, a Taurus 9mm semi-automatic pistol fitted with a magazine containing 8 live rounds were found inside a garbage bin. The couple was taken into custody and subsequently charged. A former member of the Jamaica Constabulary Force, JCF, who has been accused of a fatal shooting of a teenager during a police operation in Kingston some 8 years ago, was offered bail in the sum of $600,000 when he appeared before the St. Andrew Parish Court on Thursday. Jermaine Parchment, who resigned from the force 5 years ago, was officially charged Thursday morning on a warrant issued by the Bureau of Special Investigations. Defense attorney Peter Champagny explained to the court that his client is now living in the United States, but returned to the island this week after being informed that a warrant had been issued for his arrest for the murder of Chadwick Neil Clark, 17 years old. Prosecutors reported that on June 28, 2011, the teenager was shot dead by Constable Parchment Parchment and another policeman on Rodney Road in Kingston 13. The policeman reported that the teenager was killed during a shootout and a Beretta semi-automatic pistol was recovered from him. Mr. Parchment is scheduled to return to court in September. Those were your top stories making local trending news. Now join us for news from across the region as well as our international story, sports and local weather forecast. From across the region, Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley says issues that forced Caribbean workers to rise up nearly a century ago still exists and urged the international community to collarbone further for the development of the rights of workers. It is against this background that my government in the region to which we belong had held dearly to the principles that those things which have allowed us to evolve as modern nation states from the 1930s when our workers rose up are as relevant today as they were in the 1930s. Mottley said in her address to the International Labour Organization, the ILO, on Wednesday night. Speaking on the theme, when multilateralism is taken away, what are we left with and who is left to protect us? Mottley, the first woman Prime Minister of Barbados, said that regional countries had called for equality, fairness and equal opportunities. The Barbados leader said her administration would be moving to fulfill its obligations regarding the protection of domestic workers. On the international scene, thousands of people in Hong Kong have surrounded police headquarters, calling for an extradition bill to be scrapped. Police have asked the protesters to withdraw peacefully, saying their presence would seriously affect emergency services. Millions of people have marched against the bill in recent weeks, with violent clashes breaking out with police. The bill, which allows extradition to mainland China, has already been suspended. Critics say it would erode the judicial independence of Hong Kong. Hong Kong has been part of China since 1997 under the one country, two systems principle, which allows its freedom not seen in mainland China. The protest comes a day after the government ignored a deadline set by a group of students from various universities in Hong Kong who called for the bill to be completely scrapped. Over in our sporting report, despite winning his third men's triple jump title on yesterday's opening day of the Supreme Ventures JAAA National Senior and Junior Championships at the National Stadium, Clive Pullen says he has some more work to be done before he can punch his ticket to the IAAF World Championship in Doha. Pullen jumped to a win needed 17.02 meters to beat last year's winner Jordan Scott and O'Brien Waysome and is still to make the qualifying mark for the World Championships. The former Kingston College and University of Arkansas athlete said he is looking forward to going to the Pan American Games and other competitions where he hopes to get better conditions and make the standard. Meanwhile, Javarn Gallimore led all the qualifiers for the men's 400-meter hurdles, winning his heat in 49.48 seconds. Kimar Mowat also won his heat in 46.69 seconds, and Jaheel Hyde also won his heat in 50.22 seconds to advance to today's semis. Rachel Clayton was the fastest qualifier in the women's 400-meter hurdles with 55.36 seconds. Geneva Russell was next best with 55.74 seconds, while Rhonda White, Khaleesi Spencer Carter, and the Tracy sisters, Ristania and Nikita, both advanced. On your local weather forecast, insignificant feature, a tropical wave moving across the island. Additionally, there is a low-level jet stream across the central Caribbean. The tropical wave will move west of Jamaica by this afternoon. The ridge then quickly rebuilds over Jamaica and persists until Sunday. The forecast for this morning will see partly cloudy skies across sections of eastern parishes, elsewhere fair. During this afternoon, partly cloudy mainly across hilly inland areas, windy over most areas. Tonight becoming fair and windy. Maximum temperature expected for Kingston as well as Montego Bay today is 34 degrees Celsius. That was BOJTV Trending News, your top local, regional and international stories, as well as sports report and weather forecast. Until next time, I'm Carla. Thanks for watching.